Everyone, I'm Chris Wall. Welcome to the official Wingfeather podcast. So glad to have you. Very special guest today that I'm excited to introduce. This whole podcast is bringing you into the animated series in a way that is what my daily experience is, getting to work with these amazing artists. And I want you to meet them and learn about what they do, how they contribute to the making of this series, and just their cool stories and that got them into animation. So today I'm so excited to welcome Garrett onto the podcast. He is our art director for the series, and let's have a chat with Garrett. Hey, man.
Hey.
How are you?
Good. Yeah, glad to be here. It's been hearing about the podcast, but sounds like you a few in already.
We've worked it out, so you're not the first to have it go wrong, right? Where I ask the wrong question and you have no answer. We've got it pretty dialed in now, we think.
Nice.
So we'll find out today. Well, let's dive into it. Talk about how you got connected with the series. I think it's an interesting story for everybody that doesn't know this story.
Yeah, I say it's providential, the timing of it all. I had been working at Pixar for the previous decade, doing environment design, character design into art direction, and just knew it was about time to kind of find something else. We were diverging ways at Pixar. And so I just started looking for what else is happening out there. My kids had read the Wingfeather Saga. I had not at that point. So I had heard of it, but beyond just being books, I had no clue that there was an animated short that you guys had been working on. Mm-hmm. But some friends just emailed over when they heard that I was looking for another studio to work for. They emailed over, I think it was right as you guys had finished your Kickstarter crowdfunding. Was that Kickstarter or was that Angel at that point?
It was just a straight crowdfund at that point.
Okay,
yeah.
Just the straight crowdfund.
Yeah, because they did the Kickstarter. Andrew did Kickstarter for Warden and the Wolf King, the fourth book. Then we did a Kickstarter for the short film, and then we crowdfunded for the production itself.
Yes. And Angel was going to distribute at that point. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they sent over just whatever the landing site was for that kind of accomplishment. I was like, wow. And watched the short and was really impressed by the style of it. And then also just the kind of, I think I went to the Shining Isle website, which was literally just a landing page at that point.
Right. That Andrew and I had put up.
Yeah. And it just had a write-out, I think, that Andrew had put on there. And I was just like, yes, yes, yes. As far as the vision of the studio and the kind of storytelling heart. And so I was like, okay, for sure want to at least talk to these guys, and ended up somehow finding your email address and contacting you, and ended up having a great conversation. And it was just like, I think when we ended that conversation, you said, well, the timing couldn't be more perfect because we're just now thinking about hiring.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was this interesting conversation because we had this kind of OG crew that helped us make the short film. So Nicholas Cole, of course, and Tom Owens. And so when we finally got funded, it was like, oh, we got to see if we can get the band back together, right? Kind of moment.
Yeah.
And Nicholas had always been kind of this journeyman, independent artist. I don't work a full-time job. I'm going to go, do other things in the industry. And so we did the short film together. And the conversation came up a couple times. Hey, would you ever want to do full-time? And do you think you'd want to art direct?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. That's a world that I don't really step into. And I was like, well, and it was interesting for me, not understanding really the role of art director in the way that it works in a larger project like this, right? Because I'd worked with like Chuck Vollmer and some of these that are art directing on a film, but it was just in a different context. It's interesting looking forward now. I don't think Nicholas had that skill set. That he's a wonderful mentor for different artists, but the kind of way in which the art director functions in this kind of production is so different than I imagined it to be.
Yeah.
And so when you reached out, there was two things at once. One was, hey, I'm a guy who's been at Pixar for a while, and I want to look at doing something else. So the first thing is, really? are you? Because
Yeah.
there's just because we had so many submissions from people that were interested in coming along with us, like, oh, I love what you're making, can I help out, right, whatever, which we were really honored by, but many just didn't have the skill set we needed, right?
Yeah.
So I reached out to Paul Conrad, our
Oh,
friend.
yeah.
Hey, Paul, do you know this guy Garrett? Is he for real? And then I think we had John Troush was out that way too, and so of course Paul's like, no, dude, Garrett's awesome. You totally got to talk to this guy. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll talk to him, whatever. And then it was, so what do you do? And it was funny because you were so gentle to explain, well, as an art director, here's what I'm going to do, right?
Yeah.
And then you clarify, honestly, the role that Nicholas served in kind of getting us going was really as a production designer, saying, hey, here's the look, the general thing we're going to try to make together. And then the art director says, fine, I'm going to go execute on that vision and stay within this envelope that's been created and push it and explore it and, adjust for it, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Coming into that design, I mean, was there a place where you felt like, oh, your particular skill set was aligned? Because I would suppose there's probably productions you look at and go, that's awesome. I don't know how to do that art.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think as I don't know if it's a certain personality type, but there was a lot of people like me in the art department at Pixar, where there's an ability to adapt style, basically.
Okay.
It's kind of built into the process just because productions have different styles. Mm-hmm. And usually it's kind of comes down from the director on what they're hoping for. But you've got to be able to adapt, or you're more of a fine artist. Like, you do your thing, and you kind of stay in that category. But so I have always loved just kind of coming in, analyzing a style, and then working within that. I actually like those kind of boundaries.
Okay.
It helps focus me, and it creates kind of a fun problem to solve. Mm-hmm. It's actually more fun for me to do that than to just like sit in front of a white page and blue sky stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think with those parameters coming in, it was like, oh yeah, you guys have something. You have a lot of really cool stuff that's already happening with this like hand painted backgrounds, which is kind of harkening back to the old Disney stuff, and yet tied with this new CG tech. And hand painted textures on characters. So I felt like that first challenge of just like, okay, how can we just make this into a world that can scale to the size that we would need for the storytelling of potentially seven seasons.
Yep.
That takes place over a whole literal world.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a lot of stuff we had to shift there, but the kind of key stuff that Nicholas had put into being this painterly quality was fun to actually hold on to and work within.
So then season 1 had nearly 1,000 background paintings, which you painted all of those, right?
No.
So talk about the role of art director in that, right? How does that work? Explain kind of the process if you're outside of this.
Yeah, I think it's a lot like any industry where you rise up through the ranks, and at a certain point you go from producing a lot of art or music or, on a construction site, you go from actually building things to just helping people to build things. Mm-hmm. And so that is the same with art. And as art director, I like to think of it as 90% directing other artists and like 10% actually doing art at this point, which is a sacrifice. I mean, as an artist, any creative, it feels like you're losing something. But I think we know, just as any kind of mentor, somebody that's learned stuff over time, there's fulfillment in passing it on. Yeah. And there's just a realization that it's impossible to get anything done without a big team. Sure. So yeah, that's a huge part of my job as art director, is just encouraging, training, and giving direction to the team of artists that are now all around the world. And some of them are younger, kind of growing artists, right, who have a lot of talent inherent, but maybe don't have the experience yet. And others are,
kind of deeper experience. Eustace probably maybe on that side of it, you know, or been around a little bit, done some things. How does your coaching change? Because you have to have a particular bedside manner, right? Because there's a way in which this that you've given me is insufficient. Where is the balance of, because I've seen you do it, of, oh, here, let me give you some comments, some little, I'll draw over this to kind of help you to find it. And where is the, wow, we're not really on the same page. And then I've also seen you take some of those moments and just go, roll your sleeves up and make it, right? And just take it over and say, and now I'll show you how it is. I think of Top Gun Maverick. I'm going to fly the canyon and show you it can be done, right? Because some of them just can't get it until you've cast a vision there. What's that balance for you?
I think that everything that I've put into practice is stuff that I've learned from being under art directors.
Okay.
And production designers in the past. And the ones that I've always appreciated the most are the ones that are sensitive to what people's skills are, and then also allow freedom within the design process. I think it can squelch morale and even just the joy of creating if you're noted to death. And so I often make it a point to just say, well, what would you do here? Or what do you think of this, of where we're at? And oftentimes they'll, the artists know exactly what they would want to change, what they need to add. And I give them total freedom to do that, even if it ends up slightly different than what I would have wanted. I think there's value there. It is the case that sometimes I'll end up assigning something that's just not in somebody's wheelhouse. I try to be sensitive to that, and over time now I know all of the artists and what kind of things they enjoyed doing and what they're good at. So just in the assignments is the first way to attack that, is just what we give to who. But yeah, if it ends up being like we've beat this thing long enough, it's not going anywhere, I will just say, that's great, just turn that in, and just knowing that I'll go in and clean it up later, which is totally fine. I think that's part of the job of an art director.
In season 3, I think a lot about the Mountain Pass, that particular one, that it was a good, I don't remember who did it, but it was a good thing. But I was like, man, I want something here, Garrett. I'm not getting a sense of scale, a sense of, and so then you took it and came back, and it was like, there we go, right? We're gonna have these characters go over the famed Bogabaldrick Pass, right? It's this whole thing, and I want to feel that final, crossing, and it was like, and then you came back with what was essentially it was, okay, there's the same painting, but there it is. Yeah,
and I love that I get that chance, because that's that 10% I'm talking about, where it's like, and again, I was basing that off of, whatever had already been done, so I had something to work from, and I enjoy that. I think it's fun, but it's a big team effort, and it's like, you're constantly fighting just burnout, for one. I mean, 1,000 background paintings.
Yeah.
It's one thing to paint the forest, once. That's exciting. Add another 150 times to that, becomes quite the job.
Sure.
So it's a balancing act. As an art director, and then Daniel, my coordinator, we really kind of tag team on, how can we vary that between artists to give different locations trickled in, just to keep that morale up, because you see that in the paintings. It's like if you get bored of painting something, it's going to show in the background.
Yeah.
So trying to stay ahead of that and keep life exciting, because it's a couple of years that you're in there.
Oh yeah. How many artists typically in your department?
I think when we're in full production, doing background paintings and design, it's around 11 or 12.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not big.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think it's important for people to know, if you're hearing this and you're like, oh, there's a team of 100 artists. No, it's much smaller. And you're right. You clearly start to see those that foliage is their thing, skyboxes or architectural, or like they're, because they get bogged down in one style, but you move them to another and they just excel. One of the things I remember early on that you were keyed in on pretty quickly, as I was saying, hey man, I want to really ground this world while it has fantastical elements and fantasy, right? That there's consequences to choices of characters, and there is a sense of peril, right? And it derives from the environment feeling real, right? That we go there while being painted. It's that funny, like, I don't know how even to describe that to people. They see it and they get it, but it's talk to me about choices that you have directed to be made that ground while making abstract. I don't know how to describe that.
Yeah, I think that took a lot of conversation early on, but it's basically, I think what it boils down to is truth of materials.
Okay,
is what we've kind of called it, which is where if something's made out of rock, say or stone, like a stone chimney, that those bricks behave like bricks. They don't bend. And so you can get a wobbly chimney, but this is because they're stacked that way. It's not because the bricks changed shape. And I do have a construction background, so it's that kind of thing has always meant a lot to me. It's just like, okay, how is that roof put together? It's trying to avoid as much just kind of hand waving as possible, to where, if something looks like it's bearing weight, that the beam below it feels like it could literally bear that weight. Mm-hmm. So that if it broke, that would be the consequence. The whole place would come tumbling down. I think that the other end of that would be the kind of old, Mickey Mouse type architecture where it's the wood can bend, everything feels like it's a little bit made of clay.
Yeah, and we talked about Dr. Seuss kind of materials where it's just this wonky thing. Back with VeggieTales, we allowed for more, cartoonish wonk, and it worked within VeggieTales because you have talking vegetables. Like inherently, you're in an abstract place that like that kind of thing is fine, right? Door frames don't line up, and it gives you a sense that the world, weird things can happen, and you're okay with it, right? Where in ours, I remember early on you picked out like there was a crate in a shot, right? That was like, and it just, it looked cool, designy, but you're like, no, that's not real. Like that, it wouldn't be like that, right?
Yep. It just breaks believability. Yeah, there's different, there's a whole conversation of what can build believability, but that is just one element. Just the realistic lighting, like we pay attention to where would the light be coming from at this time of day,
right?
And even just geographically, where's east, where's west, what types of trees would grow near the coast. So yeah, I love all that stuff. That builds out a world that when you look at it, just feels like, I could go visit that spot. The believability of the world,
while simultaneously allowing for us to see brushstrokes. I think it's an interesting twist that like you can tell the painter's craft and the effort, and we allow that to. Yep, I can tell that that's painted. Right, there's a brush involved, but my brain accepts it because it's a painting of something that feels grounded and real.
Oh yeah, and that's just the storybook kind of style. I think of just feeling like a painting, which I think if we boil down what we're seeing visually on the screen is unique of our show. It is that. It's just like we've literally hand painted the characters. We've hand painted the backgrounds. It all takes place in a computer, but the skill and the brush shapes are all the same as like a puppet show. And yet in a world that feels grounded. Yeah. I think that's different than a lot of other productions that I've seen in recent history.
Yeah, especially this more abstract painted style. They tend to go all the way in on then the world being kind of loose and unhinged. We both love animation. What was your first draw to animation? What was the thing that you're like, I think I'm going to pay attention to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always grew up reading comic books and drawing from comic books and loving animation, but having no clue like when it went into them. And so when I came across an art of book for the first time, which I don't know, probably high school, and looked through that and just saw all of the artwork that was involved and that went into the design of an animated production, I immediately was like, that is what I want to do. It just felt, every bit of it was in support of some larger narrative. The style was so unique. It went from like pencil drawings to, sketchy character expressions and then just full world building of, what trees look like and leaves. And so that whole kind of, it's basically like a portfolio of what goes into an animated show and an art of book. Can't remember what the first one was. Probably was a Pixar movie, Wall-E or something.
Yeah.
And that solidified kind of what my direction was as an illustrator. I think knowing what illustration was prior to that was a big step. Just, oh, wow, there's art that can tell stories. And then seeing that kind of illustration used in film and animation was pivotal.
Do you have a favorite animated movie or television series?
Pixar was huge for me, which is amazing that I ended up working there, because I actually I found a journal entry for after I watched Toy Story for the first time, and it's hilarious how it blew my mind. I think I used that phrase, and just the attention. I even noticed back then the attention to detail and like the chipping paint on the doors and it felt like a world that you could visit, and then the characters embodying it. So yeah, Toy Story was pivotal for sure, as I think it was for most people that saw it back in 1995.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, all the classic Disney stuff too. Love it.
Yeah. Talk to me about working with a local and remote crew. So at Pixar, you had a number of times, kind of like a lot of us, where you get to be in a room with people, right? And then there's we're going to start working from home. And now here, largely you work from home, right? Come in the office to the studio here once in a while, but most of your team is kind of all over the place. What are some of the opportunities and what are some of the challenges of making art together in that way?
Yeah, I honestly, like you said, during COVID, we all got sent home from Pixar, and I think we were working on Lightyear at the time, and most of that movie was made from home. And it was one of the best years of my life. It was like being home with the kids, being able to really focus on the design of the project, and in a way that actually works for an art department. I don't think being home is not great for every single department, but art in particular, because a big part of the day-to-day is doing art reviews. And so Zoom allows artists to be able to share their screen, which is where they're doing their paintings in Photoshop, and kind of walk you through it.
Yeah.
I think the equivalent to this at a studio is to go stand behind somebody's workstation and have them kind of, show you what they're doing. But in that context, you have to kind of just point and describe what the direction should be. And on Zoom, you can just pull up the annotate as an art director and start to draw over. Or a lot of times I'll even take a screenshot and then share my screen and open it up in Photoshop and start painting on their painting. So it becomes this kind of real back and forth.
That's cool.
And then at Shining Isle, with a lot of our artists being remote and overseas, it kind of connects us, to really good talent that is in Europe. We've got folks in Prague and Amsterdam and Germany. So it works. For one, it's in some technical ways better. There's some things that you miss out on, but it's just one of the sacrifices. And I do think that one of the really cool things about this is just being able to talk to folks around the world and makes it feel like a, I don't know, worldwide project.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, very much. On that, Eustace, hey, we want to design this thing, and it's look like this, it feel like this. He said, "You mean like outside?"
Yeah.
Because he's in Amsterdam, right?
Yeah.
And has like, oh yeah,
Totally different set of reference. Yeah.
But then the tripping hazard of season 2, we need some live oak. What's live oak?
Yeah.
Right? Because I think Trudy and Eustace both were like, describe?
Yeah.
Like, no, you know, like Florida. Right. No idea. Like, oh, okay. Hang on.
I've been to Florida. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool bringing in some of the, American experiences of terrain and design that's less intuitive. So much of our show has European influence, right?
Yes.
But, we get to once in a while take some American cues, which is fun.
Yeah. But I think along those same lines, I think this goes for story or any department where you bring in people from different backgrounds, different countries, which means they have different customs and they were raised. Those are all ideas that get poured into your production.
Yeah.
That makes it feel more rich than if it was just made within one locale.
You have a really unique design process that I'm sure there's others that do it, but in the art directors and artists that I've worked with in my career, I hadn't seen, which is when we start talking about a new location, your first stop is Google Earth. Talk about that and why.
Yeah, I spend way too much time on Google Earth. It's crazy to me that that's a free application. Like, I think it's a way of going on a scouting reference trip from your desktop. And so yeah, if like we were talking for season 1, where it takes place on the cliffs overlooking the dark sea of darkness. Like, oh, what does a big cliff on a ocean look like? And I don't know. I don't know the names of all these locations. I haven't traveled much, so I'll just jump on Google Earth and just kind of cruise around different coastlines until I see what looks like cliffs. And I think the one I ended up finding was in Ireland, and then there's so much just street view, or now people even go on hikes and take full 360 panos of locations.
Yeah,
but it's all geolocated. So you can kind of just do a big reference dive right there. Even for now, Banrona in season 3, I was like, okay, it's a medieval town that's built onto a kind of a harbor and on a hill. It's like, okay, there's got to be a place like that exists. And sure enough, like just scouting around, I think the Spanish coast, and found a couple locations that worked for that. And some are even mapped in 3D now too, where you can kind of tilt the camera down and get an idea of what that town looks like, or at least find the name of the place and then go use YouTube to find a drone flyover.
Right.
Yeah, it's just, there's so much available to us now.
And it gives us this ability. I remember looking at stuff that you were pulling in, the way in which the real world behaves, erosion and topography in the real world versus kind of what you might design in a 2D or even CG way would have a sense of your own manipulation, but then referencing the real world, again, back to believability, right? There's just this groundedness that occurs, which from a story perspective, from my side of it, of like, hey, I want to make this feel like it's a space that you could visit and also feels really grounded, which, Star Wars had, right?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, right?
Lived in, yeah.
It all, Dune even, this feeling of like, oh yeah, that's very much a real place. Not a place I visited maybe, or I don't know it, but it feels like
in
something.
The same universe.
Yeah. Those qualities show up. I mean, it's incredible. And certainly in Banrona now for S4, we're going to see that kind of further. But talk about here in season 3, getting to visit the ice prairies of Chimera. That's a locale that's so foreign to many people, right? And what that would look like. I mentioned, because right at the start of this, Oh, I was that close. My family all took a trip to Iceland, and Heather and I were going to go, and then last minute had to bail out of it. So sad.
Someday.
But so much reference that they took. So I remember showing you pictures of like, look at these ice tunnels and crazy stuff. But
Yeah.
talk about how it influenced season 3.
Yeah, that was a weird one. I immediately went to kind of Antarctica just because I was picturing flat, ice prairies. We know they're flat. They've come off of the Stony Mountains, so those will probably be in the distance. But for the most part, it's this kind of flat ice tundra, and then of course what we have below it in Kalmar. But so yeah, looked at a lot of Antarctica, and then just kind of like snow cave, like what does that look like? Which ends up completely having a different look depending on what kind of lighting is in there. And then, looking at Empire Strikes Back, that was another one because Ralph McQuarrie had done a lot of artwork for that, for underground kind of ice tunnels and stuff. But the balance there was finding something that looked like ice, but just you weren't kind of distracted by it, because ice can be translucent. It can be, all reflective and glowy, and yet it's still the walls of the apartment that the family is staying in, or it's the walls of Main Street, which should just feel like a kind of hub of commerce. Mm-hmm. So we ended up finding a balance there where you looked at it, you could tell it was just kind of a snowy ice without it being, overly dramatic or distracting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a cool place to play with for space and light, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of how big you make something, how it turns, and then whether it is translucent. It was fun playing with where we could imply light sources.
We wanted it to do that. Yeah,
right. We get to turn it that way. Is there something for you in season 3, like if we had one of our super fans walk in and be like, tell me what you're most excited about? Is there something in season 3 that stands out to you as like a key moment, something that maybe you were a part of designing or creating, something that you're like, wow, this thing I think you're going to really love?
Yeah, I mean, the whole episode is a level up in, I think, every single way. Mm-hmm. Storytelling is solid and just getting more and more dramatic. The technology is getting refined to a point where we're able to do more in the budget that we have. There's a certain level of just polish to the final image. And so all of that is stuff I'm super excited about. And the scope of the show, I mean, we go from Dugtown over the Stony Mountains, which we have some crazy wide shots up there. Mm-hmm. We're in the Abominable Cave, and then all the way into the ice prairies and beyond. So it's all stuff that when we first started, we were really worried about, just how can we make that look big? How can we make it feel compelling and believable with the technology that we have, the team that we have? And I think everybody just crushed it. And I will say we end up on a boat in the ocean, and our water technology is looking so much better. And just the idea that we can get multiple characters acting on a ship with dragons and effects is, as kind of someone that likes animation.
Yeah,
it's fun.
As you've been in the animation industry now for quite a long time, is there a part of, you're at a dinner party, is there a part of the animation industry that you feel like doesn't get talked about? It could be your own art direction, right? Mm-hmm. There's a part that you don't feel it gets talked about, that people want to talk about the actors, want to talk about the animators, right? This sort of space. Is there a part you feel like, man, this actually is a really cool part, really interesting, compelling part of animation?
I think, one thing I find myself kind of talking to folks about that aren't in the industry much is just the kind of intersection of all of the arts in animation. Mm-hmm. I literally cannot think of one kind of artistic endeavor that's not a part of making an animated production. There's people writing the score. There's folks working on, doing the sound effects, just drawing and painting and designing. obviously in the art department, actors acting, and then just all of the tech stuff that are skills and arts that people are working on, all kind of converging into this bigger story. And it's a literal story that has an arc to it and a meaning and a purpose. So I think that that is the most amazing thing about animation. I think when it comes to our show within that field, it's just, again, like I was saying earlier, where we've got hand painted textures on hand painted backgrounds. So these are brushstrokes that you see on screen, which an artist took the time to put there. And a show like Pixar has equal amount of artists involved, but the final image is much more polished, and it's kind of the result of a lot of effort. But I think in our show you can just see a little bit more of that handmade quality, and it comes across as a really kind of rich, compelling image, which is fine. But when it's supported also by a rich and compelling story, it's something special. I think that's what the folks that have seen the series are so excited about and connected to. So that's a cool thing to be a part of.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for joining. Glad to have you. So glad to have your contributions on the series. I know I speak for the artists that you work with. They so love working for you. Your mentorship, you're so generous to them and helping them to grow. To a person. They've all grown as artists under your leadership. So well done, sir.
Well, cool. Yeah, I think that I try to make it clear that everything we see on screen is the result of a lot of really talented artists, and it's really my pleasure to just be a part of it, to have a role. So thank you.
It's awesome. Thanks for joining. Well, thanks for joining me today and my special guest. To watch the series, of course, check out wingfeathersaga.com and follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook at Wingfeather Saga. Make sure to check out the program wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. This has been a Shining Isle production produced by Jaron Weatherly, executive produced by myself, Brock Starnes, and Andrew Peterson.